Let me make sure I get my chat set up so I can talk to y'all. Good. Hello, Rasa community. Welcome to the reading group is what this live stream is. We are going to be reading a new paper. In theory. So I'm just waiting for my streams to catch up. Am I online? Yeah, I'm online. Oh, there was a network error. That bodes well. There we go. Okay. Oh, did the stream stop? Sorry, I've been having pretty serious internet issues locally with my provider, and there's not much I can do about it, unfortunately. We're reading a paper. The paper is by Ahmad Abdellatif. I'm sorry if I'm going to say these names wrong. Diego Costa? Khaled Badran? Rabe, Abdalkareem, and Emad, Shihab. And my deepest apologies for saying names wrong. I do try real hard, but I don't always have enough information to sort of like make a good guess. And the paper is Challenges in Chatbot Development, a study of Stack Overflow posts. So I chose this paper because I think it sounds cool. I think we've all had challenges in chatbot development ourselves. And of course, if you're using Rasa, we have the Rasa forums. Hold up. The Rasa forums. Haha, my animation. But also people ask questions on Stack Overflow about Rasa. We monitor those as well. So lots of folks asked questions about their projects on Stack Overflow. And yeah, I thought this seemed like a really cool data text mining project. Robbie says complain to the police station about the ISP. Yeah, there's not much you can do about it, unfortunately. And it's more just like, you know, downtime. Again, just not much I can do about it, unfortunately. And the other ISP in my area is worse. I've looked into it. Anyway, let's hop in. Chatbots are becoming increasingly popular due to their benefits in saving cost, time, and effort. This is due to the fact that they allow users to communicate and control different services easily through natural language. I mean, it depends on the system, but hopefully easily. Chatbot development requires special expertise, e.g. machine learning and conversation design, that differs from the development of traditional software systems. At the same time, the challenges that chatbot developers face remain mostly unknown, since most of the existing studies focus on proposing chatbots to perform particular tasks rather than their development. I would say that they're not super unknown to me, but then it is my job to, you know, help browser developers build chatbots. So I tend to hear about the problems and challenges that people have in a way that I think most researchers don't. No audio. My levels look good. I'm just gonna keep talking for a bit. I don't know what it is if it's not working, because my monitor is okay. Yeah, I'll just wait for anyone else to chime in so I can get some more information there. Therefore, in this paper, we examine the question and answer website, Stack Overflow, to provide insights on the topics that chatbot developers are interested in and the challenges they face. In particular, we leverage... You can't hear. Okay, fantastic. I have been having problems with this mic, but I thought I'd fix them yesterday, and I was like, oh no. Blah, 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 blah. We leverage topic modeling to understand the topics that are being discussed by chatbot developers on Stack Overflow. Oh, fantastic. AJ says audio is okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, thank you. I had audio issues on a stream recently, so I'm hyper vigilant about them. No coffee today. Um, blah, blah, blah. They're using topic modeling. That's what I do. Then we examine the popularity and difficulty of these topics. Our results show that most of the chatbot developers are using Stack Overflow to ask about implementation guidelines. That tracks with my experience as well. We determined 12 topics that developers discuss, e.g. model training, that fall into 5 main categories. Most of these posts belong to chatbot development, integration, and natural language understanding model categories. On the other hand, we find that developers consider the posts of building and integrating chatbot topics more helpful compared to other topics. Specifically, developers face challenges in the training of the chatbot's model. We believe that our study guides future research to propose techniques and tools to help the community at its early stages to overcome the most popular and difficult topics that practitioners face when developing chatbots. And I think that's really a big part of the problem, and the audio is okay and Ruben as well. All right, fantastic, thank you. And I think that's really a part of the problem that Rasa is designed to solve. So I don't know. I think about it like we do the conversational AI, right? We do the machine learning work and the implementation of the models and the model development. So you can work on the chatbots, right? You can work on the specific system that you're building. Is how I've started phrasing it. I don't know if that phrasing doesn't make sense. Feel free to tell me in the chat. But yeah, I think that's sort of the general way that I talk about it. Also, I didn't mention it. This particular topic is from the 17th International Conference on Mining Software Repositories, which was October of 2020. So this is a fairly recent paper, and I believe it's an ACM conference, so the Association for Computing Machinery. I think that's what the M stands for. Anyway, let's read the paper. Introduction. More than 50 years after Weizenbaum introduced the first computer program to have a conversation with humans, I think that's ELIZA. Although I could be wrong about that. Let me go down and check that reference. 76? Was that not the number that I was looking at? 68, sure wasn't. Rachel, are you dyslexic? Shh. Hush you. Yeah, I know I am. ELIZA. And if you're not familiar, that was a system. It was designed as like a therapist replacement or augmentation, where you would say something and then what you said would be rephrased as a question and asked back to you, and you'd respond and back and forth. And a lot of people really enjoyed using the system and found it, genuinely therapeutic. So, little chatbot history. Chatbots have become the main conduit between humans and services. The main. I would say that's a rosy way of talking about it. Maybe the authors of this paper know something I don't. Disrupting developer productivity, one bot at a time, 2016 ACM SIGSOF. Okay, so this was sort of at the height of the Facebook, the thing where Facebook opened up so that anyone could deploy a bot on Facebook Messenger. That was sort of at the height of that moment. So I don't think it's the main one, but it is definitely one of the ways that people interact with systems. Rabe says, without data, is it possible? Oh, so is it possible to build a chatbot without data? Yes, absolutely. You can build a completely rule-based system. They are generally less flexible in the type of speech input that they will accept. And they tend to work best for very, very simple interactions where you're always going to have the same interaction in the same order. The more complex the interaction is, the more difficult it is to build a rule-based system to handle it well and naturally and maintain the system. But you can absolutely build an assistant without data, and a lot of the earliest ones were done that way. Block world, if you're familiar with that, and sort of like a conversational way to describe objects in a virtual world and interact with them using speech data, text data, was sort of an early system, and it was 100% rule-based. So it was ELIZA. Potentialized by the recent advances in artificial intelligence and natural language processing, chatbots are the primary interface in a variety of services, from smart homes, okay, that's true, personal assistants, healthcare, and e-commerce. 1 and 2, I agree. 2 and 3 and 4, I'm a little bit, I think they're maybe not the primary way. Given how chatbots, at least in my personal neck of the woods, given how chatbots reduce the operational cost of services, the uses of chatbots will only increase. Experts predict that 85% of users' interactions with services will be done through chatbots by 2021. That also seems a little rosy. That seems like speaking it into being, It feels like a little bit high. What type of chatbot? So that was the ELIZA that I mentioned. That what you said was rephrased as a question, and this was all done using parsing rules and sort of early, back when like computer science and linguistics were much closer as disciplines. Due to their importance and popularity, developing and maintaining chatbots is becoming more important. In addition, the development of chatbots requires expertise in specialized areas such as machine learning and natural language processing, which distinguishes it from traditional software development. Although, so we ran the developer survey last year, and we'll probably do another one this year for the Rasa community. And what we found is that, yes, we absolutely have a lot of machine learning engineers. We also have a lot of software engineers in our community who maybe don't have a really strong machine learning background, or this is the first NLP project they've done. So I think it's definitely possible for, a traditional software developer to build a really great assistant. Recently introduced chatbot frameworks have reduced the barrier to entry of creating chatbots, Microsoft Bot Framework, by providing components for user interaction and natural language understanding platforms. Little is known about the specific challenges the chatbot developers face when developing chatbots. Understanding such challenges is of paramount importance to me personally. Helping the research community provide more effective tools for chatbot development, improving their quality, and ultimately increasing their adoption and usefulness among users. In this paper, we provide the first attempt at understanding the challenges of chatbot development by investigating what chatbot developers are asking about on Stack Overflow. Oh, hi, Than. I'm like you too. I'm glad to have you. We study Stack Overflow since it's the most prominent code-centric question and answers website and use constantly God, we're being roasted, and used constantly by the development community to communicate their challenges and issues, provide solutions, and foment discussions about all aspects in software development. A lot of people use Stack Overflow. I don't think this is wrong. I think it's just like I find it tickles my funny bone that this is the way that they're characterizing it, but I don't think they're wrong. Our investigation dives into the chatbot-related post on Stack Overflow to pinpoint the major topics surrounding the discussions on chatbot development. I'm guessing that they're going to use the chatbot hashtags here. We use well-known topic modeling techniques, such as, to group the posts into cohesive topics and apply a series of quantitative analyses, both through metrics and manual analysis. Specifically, our work investigates the following research questions. What topics are chatbot developers talking about? We find that chatbot developers ask about 12 main topics that can be grouped into 5 main categories. These categories are related to chatbot integration. So like you built your own, how do you integrate it somewhere else? Again, lots of people, definitely a lot of questions about that in the Rasa community. Development, natural language understanding, user interaction, and user input. The most popular questions include those related to chatbot creation, integration, and user interface. And I'm guessing that that's sort of like that is a graphical user interface for interacting with the chatbot. Before y'all say that, yes, I know that there is a desire for one specialized for Rasa. We hear you. We're thinking about it. What types of questions are chatbot developers asking? Chatbot developers use Stack Overflow primarily as a source of guidance for specific implementation routines, working examples, and troubleshooting. This shows a need for better documentation that provides real scenarios and more information about the NLU models used by chatbots. Yeah. Okay, so they're pointing out that when people come to Stack Overflow, they are looking for they've got a problem that they're working on, they need guidance on something, and they're looking for working examples. So these are all very specific things, right? This is good. I don't know that those are things that are easy to solve with documentation. because I feel like they're, oh, we can talk about this a little bit. I think this is a relevant discussion here. So, right, like the ideal documentation for me personally is I can go to a place and all the code I need to write has already been written and I can just use it and I have permission to use it in the right, licensing to do that. However, you can't do that for everybody in your community, right? And if your documentation is focused on working examples rather than how to do specific tasks within your framework, there are always more working examples that you could add, right? Whereas the functionality of your framework is going to be limited in its scope, hopefully, because you have decided what to put in and what to not put in, and you can communicate that in a much more succinct way that's easier to look things up. So, A, working examples, yes, very good. You should definitely have some. B, you cannot focus your documentation around working examples completely because you're never going to be able to create enough working examples to cover all the possible use cases of a flexible system. And the point of building a flexible system is to give people the tooling to build other things. Anyway, so that's just sort of my response to this. And I agree that there should be working examples and like full demos that you can play with as part of documentation, but I think it's a little bit Sisyphean to try and get all the working examples that developers might need in your documentation. If that makes sense, I hope this is coming through. Rabe says, the attractive UI is useless if the chatbot is not responding correctly. That's true for every software. Yeah, no, definitely agree. All right, what topics are the most difficult to answer? The most difficult topics are related to training the chatbot NLU models. On the other hand, posts related to traditional software development, e.g. chatbot development frameworks, are more frequently answered, albeit we did not find any statistically significant correlation between the popularity and difficulty of the chatbot topics in our study. Interesting. So they're saying the questions that I'm guessing here get the fewest answers are more of the machine learning questions. So what I'm getting so far is they're saying, hey, what chatbot developers really need is help on the machine learning side, which I think is something that our developer relations team has really been focusing on providing. And that like the traditional software development parts of it, there are other resources and there's more community knowledge existing, so there's not as much call for domain-specific work. Rabe says, most documentation is not understandable. I mean, there's definitely a range of qualities in documentation. Yeah, I guess it means depends on what you mean by understandable. Doop-a-doo. Like, just to zoom out on that a little bit. If I looked at a bunch of React documentation, I would probably not be able to make heads or tails of it because I don't know React. And if the documentation is written with the assumption that it's a React developer who's going to be reading it, I'm not an appropriate audience, right? So I should probably go and spend some time learning about React and using the framework and building some projects and developing my own understanding. And maybe taking some courses, right? And then once I have more background knowledge and I come back to the documentation, it should be much more understandable. So that's definitely like, it's like anything that's written for a specific audience and assumes some background knowledge. If you don't have the background knowledge, it can be challenging to go further. I don't know if that makes sense. Like R packages. I mean, R packages are, many of them are written specifically for statisticians and specifically for people who are doing statistics on a particular type of data set, and the assumption is that you have knowledge about that data set, right? Like if you're getting a bioconductor package, the assumption is that like you're working in biology and you know about the gene data you're working with, for example. So yeah, I mean, it's like, are you part of, it's really part of a larger question of audience design in technical communication. All right. In addition to the identified chatbot topics on Stack Overflow, we discussed the evolution of chatbot topics on Stack Overflow. Oh, we identified them and then we look at the evolution. We find that chatbot-related discussions have increased substantially since 2016. Oh, that's good to know. The activity of some categories are linked to the releases of chatbot platforms. Also, we compare the chatbot topics to other mature software engineering fields, e.g. mobile and security, in terms of popularity and difficulty. Our results show that the chatbot community needs more effort to reach the maturity level of similar software engineering fields. I don't know that I would compare it to mobile and security. I would probably compare it to related machine learning engineering roles, personally. Robbie says, are you talking about the getting started documentation of React? Oh, so that was just an example, right? So if there's a React, I don't even know what the pieces of software are called. Shards? No, I don't think that's gems. No, that's Ruby. Anyway, if you are looking for a particular package, I don't know if they're called packages in React. There's probably some assumption of shared background knowledge. Our findings show that platform owners need to improve their current documentation and integration with popular third parties. Moreover, we believe that our study guides future research to focus on the most popular and challenging chatbot topics. All right. So methodology, and I'm about a third of the way through the talk. And there's a fair number of figures. All right, I think I'm gonna skim a tiny bit, so I'm not gonna read out the whole thing. The link to the paper is in the description of the YouTube video, so you can, and I'll pop it in Twitch as well if you'd like to check it out. So I'm not gonna read the whole paper, but you can definitely go back and do it. Some people are really talented to explain complex topics in a simple way. That is a learned skill. Anyone can learn to do that, but it takes a lot of time and effort. Yep. All right, methodology. So they got the Stack Overflow dump from September 2019. So the before times is what my brain said there. Oh, focus. There we go. And they got user questions, answers, and the metadata, view count, and creation date. And they were looking between August 2008 and September 2019. And they identify the chatbot tags and the specific tags that they're looking at. This I'm really interested in. To identify the most chatbot relevant or related tags, we followed the approach used by prior work and created a tag set using the following procedure. First, we retrieve all posts with a chatbot tag, yielding a set of 2,000 posts. Okay, so that's 2,000 posts over, 8 years, right? Because they said from 2008 to 2016? No. Sorry, this is the face I make when I'm trying to add 8 and 3. 11. Okay, so that's 11 years worth of posts. I would have thought there would have been more. That seems like a small number to me. We refrain from adding any tags in this initial step to reduce the chances of introducing noise, as this will be used to identify other chatbot-related tags. Second, we extract all tags that coexist with the chatbot tag from the chatbot tagged posts. Next, we use 2 heuristic metrics used in prior work to obtain a bigger set of chatbot-related tags. I haven't seen this methodology before, but I think it makes a lot of sense so far. The first metric is the Tag Relevance Threshold, a measure of how related a specific tag is to chatbot tagged posts. This measure calculates the ratio of chatbot-related posts for a specific tag compared to the total number of posts for that tag. Oh. Specifically, the TRT is measured using the equation, number of chatbot posts for the tag, and number of posts for that tag. For example, Rasa, that's us, is tagged with a tag relevance threshold of 21%, which means that 21% of posts tagged with Rasa are also tagged with chatbot. By using the TRT, we are able to eliminate the irrelevant tags from our set. Okay, so, the thing that I am thinking about here is specifically this isn't going to capture something like Python. So, I mean, we're built in Python, right? Rasa's built in Python, but the majority of the usage of the Python programming language are not specifically for chatbots. So even though it may be relevant, it's going to be removed. How do I feel about that? I think if you're looking specifically for posts about chatbots, it makes sense to remove Python because otherwise you'll have a lot of noise. So I can see this being a good technique, and I think I'm on board. The other thing that it might be is if there's a word that has multiple uses, and one of them is related to chatbots, one of them is not. I'm struggling to come up with a good example here, but like banking would be an example. So if I were looking for posts about banking, I may be looking for gardening posts, right, where they're talking about how to create banking for something. But most of the posts are probably going to be about financial stuff. So there's a word with two senses, and I can't come up with an example for chatbot. So no. Rabe says, like Michael Nielsen for neural networks, Anish Kapoor for physics, and me for NLP. Thank you. I appreciate that. I've spent a lot of time working to develop my skills in technical communication for a range of audiences. It's nice to be appreciated. All right. However, some tags that have a small number of posts, e.g. the bot Libre tag only has 3 posts, can have a high TRT because a single one of their posts is also chatbot related. What's bot Libre? Oh, okay. An open source chatbot and artificial intelligence platform. Create your own bot without any code. I don't know why reading I moved it over. And they've got an avatar. I'm gonna be honest, I don't like the avatar. I personally find avatars a tiny bit creepy. And again, the personal opinion, I think lots of people like them. Not to my taste. Today I learned. Thank you for that exploration. And this may introduce insignificant tags. This is a significant tag. I would say that is, in fact, a significant tag. Therefore, we use a second metric, tag significance threshold. Okay, so this is relevance and this is significance, which is a measure of how prominent a specific tag is in the chatbot tagged posts. Khaled says the figure in page 3 has some examples for other tags. Oh, fantastic. We can pop down and check that in a bit. Which is a measure of how prominent a specific tag is in the chatbot tags post. The metric is measured by using the total number of chatbot posts for that tag and the total number of chatbot posts for the most popular tag as follows. For example, the tag Rasa has a TST of 0.3, which means that the total number of posts that are tagged with Rasa and chatbot at the same time are equal to 0.3% of the total number of chatbot-related posts for the chatbot tag. Okay, so this is sort of like if you're thinking of all the places that so if you think about your collection of post tag chatbot, and you have the second collection of all the posts with a specific tag, how much overlap is there? And then the second measure is, here's the post. This one's chatbots, this one's your target tag, and you're looking at the overlap between those two circles. So this is the... Nope, these aren't simple. Sorry, I was going to say these aren't simple logical relationships. Yeah, so you'd have to use like a compound representation of this. I hope that my hand diagram was helpful. We consider a tag to be significant and relevant to the chatbot posts if its corresponding TRT and TST are above a certain threshold. The first 3 authors, with varying degrees of chatbot development experience, independently examined the tags with different thresholds. For each tag, we inspected a randomly selected sample of posts to identify when the tags became less relevant and less specific to chatbots to identify the most appropriate thresholds. This method has been used by several previous similar studies. I think that makes sense, and I think that like the specific threshold is going to be different based on the topic and like how widely used the topic is and, you know, how diverse the community is. So I think that like a hand hand threshold picking makes a lot of sense, and having 3 raters means that you can get, pretty good IRR on that as well. Inter-rater reliability. Then we discussed them to reach a consensus. The first 3 authors independently and discussed their choices. All right, and then there's this sort of general value, and that these are similar to the ones used by previous studies with the same approach. I don't know a priori why you would expect them to be similar. Finally, we use the selected thresholds to identify our tag set. Table 3, is this only the one that I can look at with my eyes? Table 1 shows the tag obtained and our tag set. Oh, it's on page 3. All right, so the top one is Chatbot, because we are looking at all the posts with Chatbot, so of course they're both going to be 100. And then Facebook Chatbot, Amazon Lex, Rasa NLU, and this is Rasa NLU and Rasa Core were separate for much of the time that they were doing their dataset collection. So I think that makes sense. In Rasa 0, NLU and Core were separate, and then in Rasa 1, they were sort of combined a little bit more into Rasa open source. AIML, weird post. Weird thing to tag a post. I get why. I understand why. And then Wit AI, Chatterbot. I wonder if that's a system. Oh yes, it is. It's a dialogue engine built in Python, which makes it possible to generate responses based on collections of known conversations. Okay, so it's an NLG thing. API, AI, web chat, and Gupshup. A conversational messaging platform with primary operations in India, the US, and UK. All right, not one that I'm familiar with. I do know that there's a lot of work on chatbots in India, though, so that makes sense to me. And then continuing down, AWS Lex, SAP Conversational AI, ChatFuel, Pandora Bots, Rasa, Chat-based, ChatScript, RiveScript. Now look that up. Artificial intelligence scripting language. Interesting. Again, not one I've heard of. Like, just because I've heard of it doesn't mean it's a bad system. It's just like it hasn't come across my radar. Programo, BotPress, and Lita. Interesting. That looks good to me, right? I've heard of most of these ones. I haven't heard, just like on a quick search. I think it makes sense that people would be talking about them in chatbot posts on Stack Overflow. All right, and then they extracted that are tagged with one of the tags in our data set. Surely at least one. Surely they're not looking for exactly one. And then they got about 4,000 posts over again a 13 year? I forget the math that I did. 11 or 13 year period. And then they pre-process it by using topic modeling techniques. We focus on the post's title, content of the post bodies, blah, 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 blah. Oh, they're using Python, NLTK, and Gensim. That face is just like, I have used those tools in the past. It's been a while since I've used them. And then they remove stop words. Also, they don't say in here that they're focusing on English. I don't think they ever mentioned that. So this step might be, if they're getting, posts in other languages, this step might be a little bit weird. Khaled said we had a similar reaction when we were collecting the data. Some of the tags are somewhat new to us. Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting. Oh, you're one of the... This one. My apologies if I said your name wrong. And please feel free to correct me. I do know IPA if you want to use that in the chatbot. Prologue is programming specifically for AI and Lisp. Yeah, I remember hearing about that. I don't think it's one of the things here, though. Oh, you're saying as opposed to RiveScript. Yeah. Interesting. Also, if you can let me know, Khaled, if Khaled, again, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. It is not my intention. Was this just English data? Because I know that Stack Overflow can be like pretty hostile to people who aren't posting in English, but I imagine some posts could have slipped through. Next, we build a bigram model using GenSim. Since we notice some words commonly appear together, Rasa NLU and bot framework makes a lot of sense. It's correct way. Oh, good. I do try. And the topic modeling technique should consider them together. Moreover, we lematize the words to map them to their origin. Okay, development match to developed, and yeah, I think that's all pretty standard. All pretty standard pre-processing except for the bigram stuff, but I think that makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of two-word names. And then topics, we did LDA. Yep, makes sense. I'm not gonna read this in detail. This looks like a pretty straightforward LDA. Yep, and then identifying the number of topics, doing some iteration. Based on experimentation, we find that k-value of 12 provides an optimal set of topics that balances the generalizability and specificity of the resulting chatbot topics. All right. Case study results. In this section, we present the analysis of chatbot posts and topics to answer our research questions. Research question 1, what are topics or chatbot developers talking about? Chatbot development has some peculiarities that distinguish it from traditional software development. True. Very true. If it didn't, Rasa wouldn't exist. For example, chatbot developers require specific expertise in natural language processing, machine learning, and conversation design, which are often unnecessary or overlooked in more conventional software development tasks. And they were in English. Fantastic. Thank you. And I know this wasn't published in a linguistics venue, so I think it's a little bit rarer to talk about specific languages. Hence, the challenges faced by chatbot developers are likely to differ from the challenges of traditional software development. Since developers use Q&A websites to communicate both problems and solutions, true, very true. The goal of this research question is to dive into the data of Stack Overflow to identify the most common and pressing chatbot topics. Yes. And to be a little bit transparent, the reason that I care about this is because I want to help people build good chatbots, right? I think that was probably apparent from the get-go. And they use LDA, fantastic. And we observed that some topics discuss similar aspects of the chatbot development process or are related to the same chatbot component can be further grouped into categories. For example, one topic with keywords related to response, webhook, and card, and another that had display, trigger, and prompt keywords related to chatbot user interaction. Therefore, we further categorize these topics to have a hierarchical view on the chatbot discussions on Stack Overflow. Yeah, I like that. So you have the sort of the generated topics, and then there are sort of additional, curation and analysis from the authors, which I almost never recommend to just like throw a bunch of stuff in an unsupervised model and just like see what happens and then take it as gospel. But I think that's definitely not what's not happening here. So good to see. We also examine the most popular chatbot topics among developers. To measure popularity, they use the average number of views, the average number of posts marked as favorites, the average score of the post. So this is upvoting from members. In the membership, you have to be like above a specific threshold for your upvotes to count, I believe. All right, table 2 shows the 12 topic titles, which are grouped into 5 main categories. It also shows the number of posts that belong to each topic and the topic's popularity through our popularity metrics, views, favorites, and scores. As seen from the table, the developers ask about different topics in chatbot development, and the number of posts vary across topics. So let's look at the table and then look into it a little bit more. So integration, API calls, messenger integration, and NLU integration and slot. So like, I'm guessing these are questions about like the format of like JSON that's passed back and forth from a specific place where you're deploying your system. Yeah. This one. So I'm just sort of like looking at the numbers and noticing if I see any like enormous outliers. And the average views looks in general highest for this development category, and a little bit lower for the integration, and a little bit lower for the user interaction. And then these two seem to be pretty much on par. And favorites are higher for user interface and then general creation integration than they are for others. And then scores. Interesting, the intents and entities really has a high score. So lots of people are favoriting these posts. All right, so let's dig into the categories a little bit more. Integration. This category contains 3 topics, namely messenger integration, NLU integration / slots, and API calls. This category deals with the integration between chatbot platforms, APIs, and websites. About a third of the posts in our datasets belong to this category, and that tracks, I would say, about So I don't get a random sampling of questions that people have about Rasa, right? But I do get, this doesn't seem like an outlier to me based on the questions that I get asked, just like as a person who works on chatbots and helps the community on that. We also see that the messenger integration topic has the highest number of posts in our data set. Again, like I mentioned, so this data set covers that like point where the Facebook Messenger thing happened, and where like a lot of people were focused on it. So that doesn't surprise me. And I'm not saying people still don't use it, but there was like a little, there's a point in time when it was very exciting and lots of people were doing it all together. And I imagine that like the development of community knowledge, and it was new technology, probably lent itself to people asking more questions that particular point in time. In this topic, developers mainly ask how to create and integrate chatbots to messenger applications. One of the reasons of the widespread of chatbots is the global adoption of messaging platforms like Slack. I use a lot of bots in my Slack. For example, Facebook reported that there are more than 300,000 active chatbots in 2018 that are deployed in its Messenger platform. Another example post under this topic is a developer asking on Stack Overflow, Facebook chatbot PHP webhook sending multiple replies. Oh yeah, this is... Yes, I've had this question about Rasa, and there's something specific about Facebook and like how long it will wait, and like whether or not you can say multiple things to a user before they respond. Yeah, I have run into this as well. As chatbots are used to integrate various services, chatbot developers are more exposed to the challenges of multi-service and platform integration. Yes. Yup. Khaled says that's pretty accurate about messenger integration. It's like, I'm not saying it's a bad platform. I'm just saying that there was like, I think somebody called it a gold rush. Like a lot of people got excited altogether. Which is not a bad thing, inherently. But it's good to know about, right? Development. The posts of this category, also I should say, if you have specific integration questions, I'd ask them on a Wednesday, probably, more than during my streams, because like I might know, but I would say that I am not, you know, I am not a DevOps person at heart, and the CSE team in particular are real good at handling integration XUs. Greg, who's also here in Seattle, who I've had on the office hours a couple times, is just like so knowledgeable. Whenever I am like completely up the creek without a paddle, I ask Greg, and he'll sort me out. He's fantastic. My coworkers are great. That's the story there. Development. The posts of this category are related to building chatbots using different development frameworks, asking about specific configurations and features, and specific implementations using those frameworks. So I would say this is the majority of questions that I personally get, but also people ask me about Rasa because that's my job. So, for example, a developer posted on Stack Overflow how to start a conversation from Node.js client to Microsoft bot. I get this question about Rasa. The post about development frameworks, implementation technologies, and general creation integration topics form this category. In our study, this category is the second largest, containing 24.3% of the posts in our dataset. This shows that developers tend to rely heavily on chatbot frameworks. Yeah, and for me, I would say this is the majority of questions I get, and I also get a lot of questions about natural language understanding. But again, I work on a framework, so I don't have a random sample of all people's questions. Who? Greg. He's mm-hmm. See if I can pull it up real quick. Oh my gosh, there's no T in Greg. Greg Stevens with a PH, STEPHENS. The last time I had him on was last month on March 31st. Yeah, he's fantastic. Real wealth of knowledge. Natural language understanding. This category contains posts related to the definition of intents, the purpose intention behind the user's input, and entities, important pieces of information in the user's input, such as city names, handling and manipulating those intents and entities, customizing and configuring NLUs, and improving the performance of NLU models. Yeah, very challenging. This category comprises 20% of the posts in our data set. I would say the percentage is probably higher for me personally, and again, questions I ask, but I am not Stack Overflow. It has intents and entities and model training topics. These topics are related to the chatbot capability of understanding users' input and replying accordingly, which has a direct impact on user satisfaction. The post, "How can I improve the accuracy of a chatbot built using Rasa?" is an example of posts from this category. And I will tell you my blanket answer to that almost always is to add more user data. And if your intents are not a good match for the things that users are asking, change your intent structure. Again, my blanket answer to that, knowing nothing else about this person's situation. Currently, large IT companies are investing in building NLU. Microsoft has Lewis, for example, which is an indicator of their importance and popularity, definitely. Moreover, NLU platforms nowadays are considered to be one of the critical components of chatbots. So the alternative to this, right, is that you have like a keyword system or like a IVR system, which is like what you call it, and they're like +1 to talk to Denise or whatever. And NLU instead allows you to like call and be like, "Hey, can I talk to Denise?" And then the system's like, "Connecting you now," right? So that's the difference in user experience. And I think one of them is something that people have had more experience with before, which is to say conversations. People tend to have more conversations than sort of go through dialogue trees. Leveraging an NLU platforms allow developers to focus on the core functionalities of their chatbots rather than having to analyze the user input and manage the conversations with the user. Yeah, and I would say we're not a platform. We are a framework. I think Alex calls us the infrastructure layer. So we provide you the tools to do this, but we don't do it for you, basically. Which is the difference between Rasa and some other options. All right, user interaction. This category contains posts about conversation design, generating reply messages to users, and designing the chatbot's graphical user interface. For example, developers ask how to resume or restart a paused conversation in Rasa /restart, and you can send these silently on the behalf of the user, or you can increase the session duration longer so that people, the session doesn't cancel out, or you can set, there's a feature flag for just keeping the history for a particular user. And how to add custom, sorry, I don't know why I'm answering these questions. You could just follow the link and see the answers in it. But how to add custom choices displayed through prompt options using C#. Ooh, Windowsy. This category includes user interfaces, chatbot response, and conversation topics, and forms 19% of the posts in our dataset. We believe that managing the conversation flow with the user is not an easy task, since the chatbot users may deviate, change to other topics from the designated conversation flow. Yeah, so this is very system specific, how you do this. Our approach, again, at Rasa, is to provide sample conversations. And if you see that same sample conversation again, the text doesn't have to be the same, but like the sort of thing the user's saying, and then the response from the assistant, and the sort of thing the user's saying, is to start with those and follow samples that exist. Use rules if you have like a specific turn that is always going to go the same way. And then when those don't work, then we use transformer-based policy to guess what the correct next response to choose should be given the conversation history. So that's the way that we handle deviations, but other systems do it differently. And traditional sort of state machine-based chatbots just don't do it. Like if you mess up the conversation flow, good luck. You're going to have to hang up and call again. User input. The posts of these category are related to checking, validating, and storing user input. How to store and retrieve the chat history of dialogue flow. Okay, so this is more like getting stuff from the users, and this is more like, okay, the users have given me stuff, what do I do with it? There's only one topic in this category and includes 7.9% of the posts in our data set. Having a single topic as a group indicates that parsing and storing chatbot users' input is more independent problem among the chatbot topics. Yeah. And yeah, this is also very platform specific. Some platforms will let you do it, some platforms won't let you do it. And it just depends on, what you're using. We let you do it, but also we're not a platform, we're a framework. From our results, we observed that the categories cover the end-to-end development of chatbots. The user interaction category covers the creation of the chatbot interface. It seems like a sort of a summary of this section. Yeah, that's interesting. And I think this generally sort of like vibes with my general general stance as well, and sort of the way that I understand the system. The system where people ask questions. Jiminy Cricket, sorry, I'm firing on half cylinders. Rachel, have you been doing okay recently? Well enough. I'm hanging in there. Also, if you can hear that, that's my MacBook. just screaming away. After understanding the most interesting topics to chatbot developers, we want to find the types of posts that they ask in each category. Prior work shows that developers ask different types of questions to address distinct challenges. Hence, this analysis will help us identify the nature of the challenges encountered during chatbot development. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, and they do sort of the same thing. Okay, and then they're looking for like how questions, why questions, and what questions. That makes sense. So integration, user interaction, and user input are all primarily how questions. And then development and NLU are, again, primarily how, but there's more focus on what questions. And these two tend to pattern together, is what I am seeing as the biggest difference here. Because this is, I don't know that this is quite far enough to be in with these two. All right, users for this post asked about a method or technique to implement something. Posts with this type differ from the why posts, as in here, the developer has a particular goal in mind and asks for steps how to achieve the goal. And then this one, the what, posts where the developer is asking for particular information. Often, the user wants to clarify a doubt that is useful to make informed decisions, e.g., what are implicit triggers in a Google action package? And this is sort of like the purpose. Interesting. So it looks like the NLU and development questions are more learning about the systems, and these integration, user interaction, and user input questions are more getting help with specific problems while using the system. So it makes sense that these are the things that happen first, but also I think it's really interesting that a lot of the NLU questions aren't like people asking for specific advice. I mean, that's definitely happening, but there's a difference in these sort of overall populations where there are fewer people asking for like specific advice about how to do X, and more people being like, what's the difference between these systems? Like, what should I do in this situation? Which That makes sense to me. Yeah. I mean, one of the very frustrating things about machine learning, and I brought this up before, is as opposed to other types of software engineering, I could recommend a general class of framework, right? Or a general class of neural network architecture, for example, based on your specific problem. But I can't tell you without training a couple networks and then seeing what the results are, what particular architecture choices are going to be best for your particular problem and what a different architecture choice will do for your overall results. Like I could guess, but I'd have to test my guesses. And that's just like the way that machine learning engineering works right now. It's just where our understanding of machine learning models and deep learning architectures is right now. And that's just the way it is. So it is very different from other types of software engineering, which I know the authors mentioned a couple times. Khaled said, so in the development category, many questions were about guidance for selecting a platform or comparing different frameworks and approaches. That makes a lot of sense. Particularly if this covered the sort of chatbot gold rush, I think I'll refer to it as. There were a lot, there still are a lot of different frameworks, but at this point, in 2021, the current year, a lot of them are a lot more robust, a lot of them are a lot more developed, and I would say there's a more stable ecosystem now than there was during the majority of the time that the data collection happened. But also even now, I work for Rasa. We're not for everything, right? If you want to build an open domain chatbot, we're not the best choice. That's just the way it is. I would use something else. Yeah. Helpful. All right. And I'm just going to get to section 3 as well. So what topics are the most difficult to answer? And I think for me, what I'm interested in here is what topics is there the least sort of community knowledge of in the chatbot developer community? Because I would say the way a question is phrased can make it difficult to answer. Some questions definitely have more it depends than other types of questions. But I think what this is going to be most helpful for me is really understanding where the gaps are in community knowledge. That makes sense. Khaled says, so the NLU category, the why questions are mostly asking about the purpose of certain approaches or why the intent didn't get extracted, for example. Yeah. And that's, speaking of questions that are hard to answer, that's a question that's hard to answer, right? Why did my model fail in this way? You need a lot of information to answer that, right? You need to know about the training data. You need to know about the distribution of important features in the training data. You need to have intuitions. You need to have intuitions about deep learning models, which I know that's what do you mean by that, Rachel? So I mentioned that machine learning works by a lot of guess and test, right? If you've guessed and tested a lot, you can sort of have more general ideas about what might work. Or why a system might be failing. Yeah, that's a hard question. Rabe says, how much do you grasp of a topic after reading a blog or article? What trick do you follow? So if you are reading things for, say, a literature review, I would, once you're done reading, summarize the main points of the article in your own word. And I think my main recommendation is to, if you're interested in learning more about a topic and you're reading articles about that topic, read a lot of articles about that topic. So that will help you, because every time somebody writes about something, they have a little piece of the pie, right? A very thin slice. So this paper, right? It's a very thin slice of the way that people ask questions on Stack Overflow, the way that people learn about chatbots, and knowing what's in that slice of pie and then comparing it to other slices from the pie will help you get more of an understanding of the shape of knowledge on the topic and sort of where the community is. Yeah. All right, the difficulty. The percentage, percentage without accepted answers. The median time in hours for an answer to be accepted. So like how many people just like didn't get a good answer to their question. I think we've all had that happen to us. It's very saddening. And then how much time it takes for an answer to be accepted. So if you can answer quickly, like if I see a really simple forum question and I'm on the forum, I'll just answer it right away. If it's like a complex one, I'm like, I'll flag this and come back later when I've got some extra brain time. Yeah. Khaled says explaining the article or to someone or the audience helps. Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely agree. All right. Our data set included some posts that didn't have sufficient time to receive an answer. In our data set of chatbot-related posts, questions take a median of 14 hours to be answered. Hence, we removed data from the analysis posts that were created less than 14 hours before the data collection date. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So, correlation between topic popularity and difficulty. I'm just going to read the this whole results section because I don't have enough information to interpret that right now. I'm not reading that much this year from after getting into YouTube. I mean, if you find this a good way to absorb information, then like that works for you. I will admit when I am working through like a math paper on my own, I will read it aloud and I will say, this number means this symbol means this. I also have, you may be surprised to hear this after watching me read for a bit, but I do have some difficulty with reading in particular and like understanding the information from it. So I use a lot of strategies. All right, table 4 shows the percentage of accepted answers and median time to receive an accepted answer for each of the identified topics. That's the wrong table. No wonder I'm like, what's going on here? That's table 3. That's figure 2. Where's table 4? There we go. All right. So the ones that get the most accepted answers and also tend to get answered pretty quickly are ones about chatbot creation and integration. Intents and entities are next in terms of accepted answer, but they take a while. Model training takes a while. Messenger integration takes a while. User interface doesn't take a whole lot of time to answer and usually gets an answer. And then you go further down and it looks like chatbot responses, implementation technologies, API calls, and development frameworks all are less likely to take answers and they take a little bit longer. My intuition here is if you have a very specific question, it will be, okay, so let's think about this. If I have, if I am standing on the street and a bunch of people are walking by and I am looking for someone with, I live in the US, so let's say blonde hair, I probably won't have to wait that long before I see somebody with blonde hair because there's like a fair number of people with blonde hair here, right? But if I am looking for somebody with a peg leg, I'm going to have to wait on average much longer before I see somebody with a peg leg and let's say any sort of prosthetic. If I'm looking for someone who has like a prosthetic, maybe I'm trying to meet somebody and they're like, I've got a prosthetic. And you're like, okay, I'll use that information to like pick you out of the crowd. You're going to have to wait longer because not that they're going to be late, but if this is a random sample of people, that trait is rarer. So knowing about a specific framework or knowing about a very specific, integration is going to be a rarer skill than sort of knowing about chatbots in general. So you're going to have to wait longer for someone to pass by. And if you wait for a certain amount of time, it may, the person may never pass by. So that makes a lot of sense. And it's a little bit different because this is not a Stack Overflow. People who answer questions on Stack Overflow aren't a random selection. Usually they're people who are like following tags. I follow the Rasa tag, for example. Do I? I don't know. My Stack Overflow is a mess because I keep creating 2 accounts. Anyway, scrolling on down. Hey, this is that thing I was talking about. Remember, I was like, there's a gold mine in 2016. That's the one. That's the thing that happened. Wow. So I would say it looks like relative growth. Oh, okay. So the area under curve is not going to be total number of posts, but it definitely looks like the rate of growth is increasing over time. That's nice. It's good to know people want to do the thing that I help them do right now. Boop, boop, boop. All right. Oh, that's backwards. That is backwards. Robbie says, can I publish a research paper in a video format? This is without an except. Forget what I said about the person with the prosthetic. That is all absolutely correct. This is backwards. So these are the ones that are not getting answers. These ones are getting answers, even though it's taking a little bit longer. That is 100% backwards. Interesting. Okay, so redoing my interpretation. So it seems like the sort of place where the community doesn't have over this time period hasn't had sort of as much you know, as much community knowledge is really more around the machine learning things. And there's more knowledge around traditional software engineering topics. That makes a lot more sense. Okay, I'm picking up what the authors are putting down. I should have read the text first. I got it backwards. And Khaled says it has grown significantly since we extracted the data. Yeah, that makes sense because I think a lot of people, particularly this year, have been really interested in, you know, automating conversations. And so the results are topics related to training chatbot models are the most difficult in chatbot development, while the most popular topic contains the largest share of unanswered posts. On the other hand, posts related to the development frameworks tend to be answered more frequently. And also, like, I am not the only developer advocate who works on a chatbot framework. You know, there are people whose job it is to help you out on this as a developer peer. So, all right, and then the evolution. I'm just gonna scroll down to see a figure because we're getting a little bit late, but I am interested to see this. All right, so here we've got integration, right? And this one is going to be lower because this is sort of the last slice that they're looking at. So there were questions around it, particularly around the Amazon Lex release. We saw a big bump. Development, lots of questions beginning to still being pretty important. User interaction. So this was questions about, let's scroll up and see this again real quick. Sorry, I'm looking for like the, there we go. Posts about conversation design, generating reply messages to users, and designing the chatbot's user interface. Okay, so these are more, yeah, user interface, chatbot response, and conversation topics. Okay, so I would say that this is more people needing help with like conversational design topics and related topics. User input has stayed pretty consistently low. NLU, there was this big bump around here. Okay, so this is the community is really in need of the machine learning knowledge. And then there's sort of like a bit here where like, okay, there's, that's a less popular of a topic. And then it looks like it's trending upwards a little bit as well. I don't want to, you know, again, this is the parts of the developer community that are using Stack Overflow, which is not going to be everybody, but interesting topics. Yeah, and then a little section here. Ooh, that's very helpful as well. So difficult and popularity. Yeah, so general questions on creation and integration is the most popular and the most difficult topic. And I get that. It's hard to get started. Yeah, I get it. And I might actually finish bits of this on my own, but I think it's worthwhile to check in with the software engineering field comparison as well. Khaled says, so general questions are not very specific, which could have contributed to them not gaining interest or not having a correct answer. That could definitely be it. And that also feels to me like very beginner questions, because often it can be one of the challenge of working with people who are super new to a space, and also like, the delights. We're happy to have you. This is in no way a burden, but um, is they don't often know like the terminology uh, for what they're looking for, and so they'll sort of like describe something, and you have to like, okay, knowing what I know about like their background and their interests, what is it that like, how am I going to interpret this question and try to answer it in a way that's going to be helpful for them? And that is very hard. I try, I do mess it up occasionally. Yeah, I try very hard to help people out in that situation, but those are hard questions to answer for sure. All right, so chatbot discussions only started to become more active in 2016. As a new and emerging field, we set out to investigate how the topics of chatbot compares against discussions of more consolidated software engineering fields, such as mobile, big data, and security. I think big data is a really good parallel here. To answer this question, we examined the difficulty and popularity of the chatbot topic and compare it against other disciplines by including data from similar studies on Stack Overflow, focused on the tops of mobile apps, security, and big data. Oh, okay, so this is why so they're building on prior work. That's why they use those examples. Yeah. Frameworkers have developers and enthusiasts help answer the questions, and that somewhat explains the difficulty results. Yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes sense. And the other frameworks are GUI based. Yeah, a lot of them are. Which, if you need, depending on your business needs, maybe what you're looking for is like a super simple system. You don't want to like take on the maintenance of it or spend a lot of time building it out, or maybe it's going to be like a kind of a temporary system and you don't want to spend a lot of time doing all the software development process for this custom chatbot. And that's in that case maybe the GUI system is what you want, right? Like there is a use for every technical system, and in a best case scenario the developers of those technical systems know what those uses are. These studies were conducted in a different time frame, therefore we use their reported keywords to construct an updated data set and calculate the popularity and difficulty metrics for each of these fields. Table 6 shows the results of popularity and difficulty metrics among the 4 fields. From the sheer magnitude of posts, chatbot topics is by a few orders of magnitude smaller than mobile, security, and big data. That makes sense. It's a much nicher topic. Second, chatbot posts are considerably more difficult compared to other fields. If you've got like 20 people walking past at a time, like in a row, you're much more likely to see a blonde person faster just because there's like a larger population to draw from, which is also a consequence of having a small and niche crowd. Yep. There's a big gap in the time to receive an accepted answer for the chatbot related posts compared to other topics. Most mobile and security posts are answered in less than an hour. Wowee! Well, most chatbot posts take at least 14 hours. This corroborates with the emerging nature of the chatbot topic and indicates that much needs to be done to put the chatbot development community on par with other mature fields such as mobile and security. Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't know that like chatbots are ever going to become as ubiquitous as like needing to protect people's privacy or like mobile phones, but I definitely agree that the developer community is growing and that like most of the developers that I talk to are pretty new to the space. And this is the comparison. All right. Yeah. And implications for practitioners. I'll read that section because that's y'all. I don't want to spend too long though because I do have another meeting after this. As shown in Figure 4, albeit being the most popular topic, beginner questions on how to build chatbots remain largely unanswered. Yeah, I get it. The development community should use this finding to devise better tutorials and documentation aiming at reducing the entry barrier for developing chatbots. Well, I'm trying. I'm trying. Yeah, no, I agree though. There's definitely a need for it, and a lot of the existing materials, particularly before 2016, were really developed for a researcher community and not a general software engineering community. So I think that's speaks to Robbie's point earlier about, papers being hard to read if you don't have like an NLP research background. Like, how would you, if something is written assuming that you have a certain background and you don't have that background, it's not going to be accessible to you. Better prioritize your work by being like, hey, it's gonna take a long time to get your NLU set up and your model trained. Yep, absolutely. And assigning more resources and development trying 100%, 100%. And also data collection and curation if you're using a machine learning approach. Like, I would say at least 75% of your initial prototype development phase should be spent on data creation and annotation and designing your model and designing your intents and designing your entities. I realize that sounds like a lot, but it's like the really no way around it. The evidence of difficulty of NLU related topics can be used to motivate better and more intuitive NLU frameworks. Yeah, so one of the things that we've really done at Rasa is try to, like in 2.0, you don't have to modify the domain file anymore. Not the domain file. You should modify the domain file, the config file. So we start you off with like reasonable defaults that should work in most cases. And it's based on our research, and we're really trying to like give you the option to just do the software development and rely on pretty good machine learning until you're at the point where you're really going to see machine learning gains. But that's going to be well down the road for most assistants. Yeah. Integration is the largest topic in the data set. People want to know how to show their assistant to people. And some examples of one-click integration features. We don't have that. Researchers and then educators. We can use this to help design chatbot related courses. Yeah, and this, I think this really, for me, solidifies my intuition that the biggest need for chatbot developers right now is really beginner content that assumes that you have some software development background. And that, like I mentioned, our Rasa developer community has lots of developers who are software engineers who have like a depth of knowledge about good software engineering and best practices and DevOps, but maybe don't have as much knowledge about machine learning and NLP and are working to develop those skills. All right. Khaled says the Rasa YouTube channel wasn't as thorough and big back then. Yeah, no, definitely. And we've been working really hard, and I hope that it is helpful for y'all. And if you ever have suggestions, feel free to let us know. We'll take them under consideration. So there is more stuff in this paper, but I am sort of losing my voice, and I got a lot on my plate today. Thanks for joining, Khaled. It's always great to have the author in the chat. I really appreciate that, so I can ask additional questions. I think I found it a really helpful paper. I hope those of you who are like, I feel like such a beginner and I don't know how things work and like I'm confused, feel seen. You're definitely not alone. You'll definitely get there. We are doing our best to like help you address the specific issues that you're facing. And I hope that you feel that those are addressed. And if they're not, again, like please feel free to let us know and reach out to us, and we would love to try and tailor what we do more to help y'all out. All right. Oh, thank you, Khaled. Very, very nice of you. And great paper. Thank you for reading it. I read it. Presumably you also wrote it. Thank you for proposing it. And like I said, there's other stuff in here, so if y'all want to dig in a little bit, links in the YouTube channel. I think that this was very informative for me, and keep on working on your development process. Speaking of development process, tomorrow we're not going to be working on our bot. We're taking a little break. I've got an idea about word frequencies that I just want to play around with a little bit. Spoiler alert, I'll probably be using R because I'm going to be doing a bunch of like graphs and statistics, and I just don't have the patience to do that in Python. I don't have the patience to like use a language that's re-implemented features of another language that has more supporting ecosystem around the very specific tasks that I'm doing. I love pandas, very happy it exists, but I will not be using it for this. All right. Oh, thank you, Don. Thank you, Enrique. Thank you, Diego. I did find it very helpful. Thank you very much for writing it. Saved me a lot of work. And we'll definitely share it around in the team. And have a great day. I'll see y'all tomorrow for live coding. And